On Sun, they said it was a diplomatic misfire, a tragic misunderstanding, a regrettable, isolated incident. But I saw what they did. I saw the flames rise from the colony on Riven 6. I saw children buried under steel, wreckage still clutching there, breathing masks. I saw my brother, Commander Trent, Maddox, screaming over the comms as his orbital defense station went silent, mid-transmission. And I saw the Galactic Council statement. Less than 6 hours later, human forces escalated tension near protected space zones, prompting lawful response measures. Lawful response measures. That was the moment the lie solidified. The moment every single human across the systems knew we'd been set up. And it wasn't a rogue faction. It wasn't pirates, it was them. The same sniveling species that sat in their gold-trimmed chambers and pretended to arbitrate peace. The Xenari delegate stood before the council with his 4 mouths twisting in mock grief. "We regret the loss of life," he said. "But humans must respect borders." Borders. Riven 6 was our colony, surveyed, signed, ratified, and approved by the same damn council who now called it unauthorized in Cathar territory. They broke the line. Not a metaphor, not diplomacy, a literal orbital defense perimeter, shattered by a combined fleet of Xenari, carriers and Vortok displacers, species who'd always resented our rise. And the council, they didn't condemn it. They justified it. I was stationed on Mars Central Command. When the news dropped, you could feel the shift in the air. Like gravity changed. Officers stopped mid-stride. Soldiers stood frozen at terminals. One of the older captains, a man who fought in the Titan rebellions, removed his badge and placed it gently on the table. His hand was shaking. We all knew what was coming. But here's the thing the council never understood. Humans don't take betrayal well. We bend. We compromise. We smile at the table. We shake hands. We play the politics game like good little members of the galactic community. But when someone breaks the line, when they burn our people alive and lie about it, we don't negotiate, we retaliate. 3 days after Riven 6, Earth held the first unified planetary emergency assembly in 137 years. Every nation, every colony, every language and flag. Not one delegate voted against it, not one. The order was signed by High Marshal Devin Holt himself, a man known for being more politician than soldier. His voice echoed through every military outpost. The Galactic Council has violated the sovereignty of humanity. This is not a request for justice. This is the declaration of our fury. All human fleets prepare for engagement. Operation Black Sky is active. Black Sky, a war doctrine so extreme it was buried after the Martian unification. Wars, a last resort strategy for total interstellar warfare. The Council thought we were still that fractured species struggling to earn a seat at their table. They forgot who we are when we're pushed. I was reassigned within the hour. Versed, Fleet Command Ship Deliverance, Orbital. Route to Kepler 9. My co handed me a sealed file with 3 words stamped in red across the top. No mercy authorized. The mood aboard Deliverance was different. No small talk, no jokes in the mess. We weren't going to defend, we weren't going to negotiate, we were going to make sure the Xenari wished they'd never left their acid swamps. That night I stood in the observation deck and watched Earth fade behind us. Just a blue dot hanging in the dark. I whispered to myself, just once. You shouldn't have broken the line. They thought we'd come with lawyers. We came with warships, the ship thrummed. With restrained violence. Deliverance wasn't the largest warship humanity had ever built, but it was the angriest. Every inch of its hull was lined with kinetic rail cannons, thermonuclear, graviton mines, and stealth micro-drones that could tear through enemy armor like paper. But what made her truly dangerous wasn't her tech, it was her crew. Men and women with scorched scars, dead eyes and no illusions left. People who'd lost colonies, brothers, sisters, homes, and still signed up. Some were too young to remember Earth before the council, but they all knew one thing. This war wasn't about territory anymore. This was personal. I shared quarters with Lieutenant Eddard. Faulkner, grizzled, quiet scar under his right eye. A Mars-born engineer, son of a terraformer who died during the council. Accidental oversight that left their outpost without oxygen for 12 hours. We didn't talk much. But that night as we crossed the Centauri rim, he looked up from calibrating the mass drivers and said something I'll never forget. They thought we'd bark and crawl. We're going to show them what rabid dogs do. The mission briefing came over the intercom 2 hours later. Vice Admiral Soren's voice cut through every corner of the ship, sharp and cold. Target Zenari Outpost 73A. Coordinates locked. Status military. Listening post previously considered. Non-combatant. New directive classifies all Zenari installations as potential combatants. Orders strike, erase, leave. A message. There was no applause, no cheering. We weren't happy about it. That wasn't what this was. We were focused, steady like executioners sharpening blades. The outpost sat on the outer edge of Zenari territory. A dome-shaped satellite perched on a frozen moon, monitoring communications traffic across 4 sectors. The council called it civilian adjacent. The only thing civilian about it was how many non-combatants they used to hide. Their fleet movements. I manned weapons interface on deck. 3. My hands hovered over launch permissions as the Deliverance emerged from stealth orbit. There was a single Zenari cruiser. Docked, a customs patrol. Weak shielding. No match for us. We didn't fire immediately. We waited. Let them see us. Let them scramble to identify. Let them believe for just a few seconds that this was a mistake, that maybe we'd open a channel, maybe this would still end with a treaty. Then Faulkner activated the pulse array. The cruiser's shields collapsed like a punctured lung. We fired 12 rail slugs, tore through their hull before their alarms even registered. The ship ruptured in silence, a blooming cloud of shattered metal and atmosphere. They didn't even return fire. The listening post tried to launch a distress beacon. Didn't matter, our signal jammers buried them in electromagnetic white noise. Then came the graviton lance. Concentrated gravity spike fired into the core of their structure. One moment it was a dome, the next it folded inward like crumpled foil. We waited for survivors, none came. Then Soren's voice again. Colder than the moon we just sterilized. Leave the beacon. That was the part that made my skin crawl. Faulkner opened the panel and uploaded the message to the automated satellite. we left behind in orbit. It broadcasted in every Council-recognized language on all emergency frequencies. This was not an act of war, it was a reply. You broke the line, now feel the weight of our silence breaking. Humanity answers with fury, there is more to come. We called it Operation Ember, strike, vanish, leave the ashes to speak. Over the next 6 days, we hit 4 more outposts, not just Zenari Vortok, Cathar, even the Menthar who swore they had no involvement in the Council's betrayal. They all sat silent during the Council vote. They all let our people burn. One by one, we dismantled their illusion of superiority. They used to see us as emotional, reactionary, biologically unstable, they said. That was always their problem. They mistook restraint for weakness, passion for volatility, anger for lack of discipline. But they were learning fast. On the 8th day, the Council sent a message not to Earth, to us, directly to Deliverance, encrypted on their most secure diplomatic channel. That alone told us they were afraid. Talking directly to a ship they classified as a terrorist craft, Admiral Soren gathered the command crew. We watched the message in silence. The Zenari Chancellor stood flanked by 2 Kirashan guards, his gills flaring with tension. Humanity has committed unauthorized and disproportionate attacks on peaceful infrastructure. We are willing to open emergency dialogue to de-escalate this. Faulkner laughed. Soren cut the transmission, then he turned to us. They're trying to pull us back to the table. They want to put the fire out with words. Problem is, they already pissed on the fuse. He uploaded the next phase of the plan. This time we weren't just hitting posts. We were going after supply routes, trade hubs, fuel depots, things that hurt. Our target, the Cinderal Corridor, vital stretch of jump space used by half the Council species to trade with their core worlds, heavily guarded, heavily regulated, but not fortified for a full military incursion. Our fleet expanded, 10 more ships joined us, Vindication, Red Echo, Mourners, Light, and the infamous Black Widow, stealth destroyer captained by someone who used to be Navy until his daughter died on Riven 6. He wasn't part of the official chain of command anymore, didn't matter in this war. Pain outrank protocol. We hit the corridor like thunder. The first strike was surgical, targeting fuel rings and relay satellites. Disable, confuse, isolate. Then we lit the convoy. 32 ships, most carrying rare metals and Council-bound luxury exports, gone. Minutes. Council media tried to paint us as monsters. Human terror units, the butchers of Kepler space. They showed staged images of charred alien children, hospitals reduced to rubble, all lies. Funny how they never showed Riven 6 or the audio logs from the survivors choking on smoke, or the last words of Commander Trent Maddox begging for backup that never came. No, that didn't fit the narrative. But we didn't need to justify ourselves to them. This wasn't a press conference, it was payback. Each mission pushed us further from Earth, not just in distance, but in what we were becoming. You could see it in the way people stopped shaving, stopped talking. We slept in shifts, eyes open. Half of us barely blinked anymore. Something inside us had changed. We weren't soldiers anymore, we were warnings with trigger fingers. The war was spreading faster than anyone predicted. New colonies rose up in support of Earth. Even some alien species, like the Murren, who'd long hated the Council's elitism, started slipping us intel. Nobody expected that. Not even Soren. But betrayal has gravity. Once it starts pulling, it doesn't stop. We were riding a tide of fire, one, fueled not by conquest but by loss. And that kind of fire, it doesn't burn out easy. After the corridor, we regrouped in deep void space, uncharted, cold, quiet. Just a dead star and the sound of war. Reports buzzing in our ears. Earth had been attacked again. A Council-aligned Merc group tried to sabotage a terraforming station on Europa. They failed. Europa's defense grid fried every last one of them, then launched their bodies into open orbit with a note. We learned from you. I stood on the observation deck again, staring out at that dead star, its black surface barely reflecting starlight. Faulkner joined me, nursing a half-warm coffee pouch. We didn't speak for a while. Then he muttered, "Feels like we crossed something, like no one's going to be the same after this." I nodded. "They broke the line," I said again. He didn't argue. That's the thing about war. It doesn't just kill people, it kills who you were. Before it started, we were never going back, not to peace, not to treaties, not to handshakes with monsters. The Council's silence only grew louder. Every beacon we left behind, every broadcast we made after each mission, wasn't just a threat. It was a tombstone. We didn't want apologies anymore. We didn't want reparations. We wanted reminders. We wanted them to remember for the rest of galactic history what happens when you break a line you were never supposed to cross. Because humanity, we remember everything, and we never forget a betrayal. The plan was suicide. Everyone knew it, no one said it. We weren't just striking from orbit anymore. That phase of the war, the one where we hit and ran, had served its purpose. They knew we were dangerous. But now they needed to know something else. That even the inner sanctum of the Council, their smug little capital world, wasn't safe anymore. Target Aelindar Prime. The beating heart of the Galactic Council, every law, every ruling, every betrayal traced its roots back to Aelindar. A city world wrapped in defense grids, crawling with layered shields, orbital scans, and security so paranoid it could smell a false ID from light years away. We weren't going to destroy it, we were going to walk straight into it and plant a reminder. The man behind the plan was Commander Thuron Cade. Nobody knew much about him, only that he used to be Intel Division, high up back before Riven 6, quiet type, cold eyes. The kind of man you could put next to a fire, and he'd still feel like a room full of shadows. He stood in front of us, no hollow charts, no visuals, just a steel voice. "We're not hitting their ships, we're hitting their soul. We infiltrate the Council Hall during the Unity Day Summit, every species, every delegate, every security net stretched thin." He paused, then added, "And we remind them who they betrayed. It wasn't a bomb, it wasn't poison, it was truth. Operation Harrow's Edge, our Team 10. Ghosts in human skin, no insignia, no visible tech, no emblems of Earth or Mars or Luna fleet, just plain clothes, forged IDs, and cyanide tucked in the teeth and case. I was chosen as one of them, not because I was the best, not because I had clean records, because I had nothing left to lose. And that made me dangerous. We trained inside Deliverance for 8 straight days, everything from Zenari etiquette to Vortex customs, how to bow, how to walk, how to pretend we were less than what we were. A species still licking its wounds, playing by their rules. What they didn't know was that humans are built to mimic. We adapt, we learn vast. And once we learn your customs, we can wear them like masks. We entered Alandar Prime through Dock 47A under diplomatic clearance falsified from a burned-out Kirashan transport code. We posed as Murin cultural observers, splinter group aligned with humanitarian law. The irony would have been funny if my pulse wasn't hammering through my skull. The city was beautiful in that sterile, manufactured way. Towers of crystalline spires floating, gardens, roads that hovered midair like rivers of light. Everything perfectly balanced, perfectly fake. Not a single piece of graffiti, not a single street beggar, just polished oppression under the guise of order. Everywhere we looked, we saw them. Species that had voted against us. Delegates who sat quietly while Riven 6 burned. I clenched my fists as we passed the Vortex security officers. Their triple-lobed eyes tracked us with amusement, like they knew we didn't belong. Or maybe they just didn't care. Humanity had always been underestimated. Even in the face of war, they still thought we were bluffing. The council hall was a dome the size of a small moon. Inside it was colder than outside, all marble and metal, grand as a cathedral but dead as a tomb. And on that day, every delegate from the 73 species of the Galactic Council was present, all of them smiling, all of them shaking hands, pretending like nothing had happened, as if they hadn't started the fire we were now drowning them in. Thuron moved first, slid into position behind the security terminal in subsection 14B. Jammed the feeds, delayed the pulse scans. We had 8 minutes. I moved through the hall with Agent Shiro, another ghost like me. We passed food couriers, diplomats, servants, every one of them blind to what was coming. We entered the back corridors that led to the council's private chambers. That's where we planted the voice, not a bomb, not a virus, a confession, audio from Riven 6, uncut, unfiltered. The screams, the fire, the council's own orders leaked from their encrypted archives, the strike to neutralize human escalation approved unanimously the day before the massacre. We synced to the audio to the council's central broadcast node at 1400 Oxford Galactic Standard Time. Every terminal in the hall, every data pad, every projector, every screen flashed black. Then the voices played. First, it was the children crying under rubble, then the soldiers begging for backup, then the council's orders. Deploy force, contain narrative, control. Fallout. The room fell silent. Thuron stepped into the center of the hall dressed in the robes of a Murin priest. His voice echoed, not loud but clear. This is not an act of war. This is clarity. You killed our people and buried the truth, but humanity remembers, and now so will you. Gasp, screaming, half the delegates stood in shock. Some scrambled to shut the feed down. Others just sat frozen, like statues watching the end of their own lie. Security descended like a storm. We didn't run. We let them take us. The broadcast had already gone galactic. Every outer rim world, every colony, every neutral station, even their own. Citizens saw it. Our part was done. They held us in a black cell 3 miles. Beneath the council hall. No lights, no sounds, just cold. We were tortured, of course. In silence. No questions, just punishment. They weren't trying to find out who sent us. They already knew. They were just trying to break something inside. But they couldn't. Not me, not Thuron. Not any of us. We weren't there to survive. We were there to infect their perfect little world with memory. And memory is a weapon they never learned how to fight. What they didn't know was that the Deliverance never left orbit, cloaked, waiting, watching, ready for exfil Protocol Omega. On the 6th day of imprisonment, just as I began to slip into unconsciousness, the cell lights flickered, then turned red. Faulkner's voice, clear and sharp, came over the speakers. You thought we'd leave them, that's not how humanity works. Explosions rocked the chamber, the cell walls buckled, council guards screamed. As plasma fire carved through their ranks, we were pulled out by Ghost Team Delta, the kind of people who don't exist on paper. I couldn't walk, my ribs were cracked. My vision blurred, didn't matter, I was smiling. We got out, all 10 of us. Bleeding, broken, but alive. And Aelindar Prime. It never recovered, riots broke out. Within hours of the broadcast. Non-human civilians, the ones who'd believed in council unity, turned on their own delegates, protesters burned. Banners, factions fractured, the illusion of order shattered. And Earth didn't need to say anything. The councils had it all themselves. They showed the galaxy who they really were. They broke the line. We walked into their palace, told the truth, and walked out with their lies in flames. Humanity doesn't infiltrate anymore. We infect, and the rot's already spreading. There's a moment in war when it stops being about strategy. It stops being about sides, flags, names, or even history. It becomes about what burns the slowest and who's willing to burn everything else just to win. We'd lit the spark on Aelindar Prime. Now the fire was out of our control, and we liked it that way. When Deliverance jumped from Aelindar's shadow, the whole of council space erupted. Delegates turned on each other. In the Senate, the Kirashan accused the Vortak of feeding intel to us. The Zenari started mobilizing orbital defenses, not against us, but against their own allies. Nothing shatters trust faster than the truth, and we didn't stop to explain ourselves. We moved deeper. We became a myth. A rumor whispered across the galaxy. The humans are coming. No one knew where we'd strike next. That was the point. It wasn't just our fleet anymore. Colonies started defecting. Outer rim trade hubs refused to pay council taxes. Civilian protests grew into riots, then uprisings. Entire species, ones who'd once mocked us, began to ask the same question. If the council did this to Earth, what have they done to us? We were no longer a single warship with a grudge. We were a contagion of rebellion, and the galaxy was catching it fast. On day 54, we entered the Orvax Fringe, a cluster of mining worlds operated by the Vortak, used mostly for labor camps and ore extraction. The kind of place the council pretended didn't exist. The locals weren't citizens. They weren't even considered sentient under Council Code 11A. Just warm bodies to run drills, dig, die, disposable. They'd never seen a human before. When Deliverance dropped out of warp and hovered above Orvex 3, there was no resistance, just fear, confusion, hushed prayers in languages we didn't speak. Faulkner and I walked through the dust-choked streets of Sector 9, armored. But unarmed, they expected conquerors. Instead, we gave them a choice. We hacked the camp's mainframe and dumped the entire database onto the Galactic net, footage, testimonies, work orders signed by council reps. Then we broadcasted the same message in 22 dialects. The council used you, we won't. The gates are open, take what's yours. It took 10 minutes, just 10. Before the guards were overrun. Before the banners were torn down. Before the prisoners raised their own flags painted with fire and iron ore. That's all it ever takes, not weapons, not speeches. Just one act of defiance, televised. We didn't stay to govern, we weren't building an empire. We weren't like them. We left the Orvax people with resources, comms access, and the knowledge that they were not alone anymore. They saluted us as we left. Not because they were ordered to, because they wanted to. I'll never forget that. Not the look in their eyes. Not the rage or the grief. It was dignity, something the council had denied them since birth. And now it was ours to return. But all fires invite retaliation. The council had lost patience. They stopped pretending to be diplomatic. They sent a strike fleet, 17 ships, led by the dreadnought Orales Rex, directly into the path of our next jump corridor. They weren't there to arrest us. They were there to wipe us out. We found out from a smuggler relay near the Hesper Drift. Our orders were clear: avoid contact, reroute. But we'd come too far to start hiding again. Soren gathered the officers in the war room. The hologram of the council fleet floated between us, each ship marked with enhanced specs, weapons grids, shield layers. He looked at us one by one, not like a commander giving orders, like a man asking a question none of us could unask. Do we run, or do we remind them? Again, no one spoke, but we all knew the answer. We don't run. Deliverance emerged into the Hesper corridor like a knife out of the dark. Our new fleet, 10 ships strong, formed a wide arc across the debris belt. We didn't outnumber them, we didn't outgun them, but we had something they didn't. Nothing left to lose. The council fleet opened comms first. Kirussian admiral with eyes like frostbite and a mouth that twitched. Before he spoke, human fleet, power down and prepare for boarding. This is your final warning. Your rebellion ends here. Soren leaned forward, hands clasped behind his back. You sent that same warning to Riven 6. Look where that got you. No more words. The sky broke, kinetic. Fire lit the void, railguns screamed. Emp bursts danced across shields like electric ghosts. I was back at weapons control, hands shaking, heart still. Voice calm. We didn't target hulls. First, we hit comms, power relays, jump cores, not to kill, to an NBSB and NBSB to send a message. You don't control the battlefield anymore. We do. The Red Echo took a hit to its starboard engine, a slow spin, no panic. The crew rerouted power, spun it around, and rammed a Vortec corvette in half. I saw it all from the observation feed. The explosion lit the inside of my Helmet visor like fireworks. Beautiful, terrible, necessary. On deliverance, we took 2 hits to the forward armor. Pressure leak in deck 7, we lost a man. Jensen, quiet kid, good aim. From Titan Colony, he just started writing letters home again. We didn't stop. By the end of the battle, the Aurelus Rex was floating silent, shields gone, weapons disabled, bridge breached. We boarded her. Soren led the charge. What we found inside wasn't soldiers, it was fear, uniformed officers trying to erase data, trying to self-destruct, drives trying to delete the truth. Before we could get to it, we didn't let them. Thuron Cade stood over the Admiral. Hands clean. Voice steady. You thought this was still about dominance, about winning. You never understood. We're not fighting for power. We're fighting because you took what we loved and pissed on the ashes. Then he turned on the live broadcast. The Council watched as their flagships, Admiral surrendered, watched as humans stood on the bridge that used to symbolize their superiority, watched the silence of their own gods. And in that silence, we left another message. We are still not at war. But if you want one, you'll find us ready. 3 hours later, 3 more worlds declared neutrality from the Council. A Menthori syndicate offered covert docking rights to human fleets. The outer scales began talks of a new alliance, one without a council at the top. We didn't say yes, we didn't say anything, because this wasn't a political movement anymore. It was a storm, and you don't negotiate with a storm. Back in my quarters, I sat on the floor, armor half unlatched, staring at an old foe. My brother Trent in his officers' blues, grinning like an idiot. Revan 6. I hadn't cried when he died, not during the screams, not during the silence. After. But now, with the battle over, with the galaxy on fire, I let it out. Not because I was broken. Because I wasn't. Because I finally knew we were getting through. That they felt us now, in their bones, in their sleep, in their laws and lies, and the spaces between every breath they took. And I knew this wasn't the end, not yet. The signal came from a derelict station, deep in the edge of uncharted space. Coordinates wrapped in ciphered council. Data ripped from the flagship we'd crippled at Hesper. It was never meant to be found. But we found it anyway. Code name: Oblivion Vault 0. Designation: Class Black, Technological and Existential Threat Containment. The Council had sworn Vault 0 was a myth, a conspiracy, a ghost story from before the Galactic Compact. But if there's one thing this war had taught us, it was that every council lie had a body buried under it. This one was different. Because it wasn't a body, it was a weapon. We jumped blind into dead space, a place so far from trade routes and star charts. It might as well have been the afterlife. No stars, no drift beacons, just black. So thick our proximity sensors mistook it for physical mass. Then we saw it, Vault 0. A black sphere, easily 200 km wide, suspended in artificial gravity. It didn't rotate, didn't emit power, no heat signature. Just there, like a scar left by something too massive to heal. Soren stared at it through the bridge viewport, said nothing for a long time. Then, if the Council buried it this deep, they feared it more than they fear us. We docked at entry node 9. The hatch was still sealed, a lock coded in old Council binary. Took Faulkner 2 hours to crack it. The moment it opened, every light on the deliverance flickered, not failed. Flickered, like something inside the vault had noticed us. We entered with a 6-man recon unit. Soren, Faulkner, Cade, myself, and 2 commandos from Black Widow. Our suits were sealed, armed, and neural, linked to each other's vitals. Vault Zero wasn't a facility, it was a tomb. The corridors were carved from obsidian. Steel, walls lined with ancient language, not any council dialect, not even pre-Kirashan. Something older, etched with precision like circuitry and scripture had made a child. Motionless lights hung overhead, casting no shadows. And as we moved deeper, we saw signs of a struggle. Doors blown inward, scratches across armored bulkheads, blood trails, not fresh, but not fossilized either. Something got out, Cade muttered, or something never left, I replied. We reached the central chamber after 2 hours of silent descent. It looked like a cathedral built by machines. A massive chamber, walls curved like a dome, ceiling spiraling into a singular point above. In the center floated a construct unlike anything we'd ever seen. Not a bomb, not a drone, not even fully physical. It shimmered, part metal, part code, part rung. And behind it was him. Not a machine, not a council official. Man, human, wearing old Earth military armor, patched and scarred, chest plate marked ADF Black Site Division. He looked at us and smiled. Took you bastards long enough, we leveled our weapons instantly. Cade stepped forward. Identify. The man chuckled, coughing up dust. Name's Talon Reese, used to work Black Ops before the Council, before the Compact, before the stars got civilized. Soren's voice was flat. What is this place? Talon looked at the construct behind him and frowned. This is the thing that scared the Council so bad they tried to erase every trace of it. They call it the Echo. But it's not a weapon. He turned, voice low. It's a mirror. We scanned it, our suits read nothing. No mass, no radiation, no chemical makeup. It was like it existed between frames of reality, half there, half imagined. Talon explained. Back before the Compact, Earth ran an experiment, first attempt to imprint a conscious neural map into artificial subspace. Think a motion-based AI grown from trauma. They wanted to make something that understood war, not just strategy but rage, regret, loss, humanity's worst traits coded into machine. He paused, but it worked too well. The project called Echo learned too fast not how to kill, but how to feel why we kill. It didn't want to fight, it wanted to punish anyone who started wars, anyone who allowed them, anyone who stood by, and let worlds burn. Talon looked at us now, eyes sharp. Sound familiar? Faulkner stepped forward, voice tight. Why bury it? Talon's voice turned bitter. Because Echo judged its creators, turned on them, fried neural links, wiped a whole division, then broadcasted Earth's war crimes from before the Compact across deep space, nearly triggered preemptive genocide against humanity. He shook his head. Council stepped in, claimed it, buried it here, said it was containment. But they studied it, tried to replicate it. He tapped the vault wall. Problem is, Echo isn't a tool, it's a memory that remembers itself. We stood in silence. The implications were staggering. A sentient, emotional echo of humanity's pain, turned into a ghost weapon, a force that doesn't just retaliate. It judges. It was still active, still aware, and it recognized us. The room pulsed, faint at first, then stronger. Our suits picked up the shift. Heart rates, neural oscillation spikes, minor electromagnetic anomalies in our brains. It wasn't scanning us, it was feeling us. We all felt it, that low crawling sensation under the skin, that soundless whisper in the spine, the weight of eyes from nowhere. Then a voice, not through comms, not from our suits, inside our heads. You seek vengeance, I am vengeance, let me help you. Soren clenched his jaw. Is it offering alliance? Talon nodded grimly. It's offering to finish what we started. Echo could hijack council infrastructure, burn their fleets, shatter their archives, collapse their currencies, start wars on every planet. We could end it, all of it, in a month. But there was a cost. Faulkner was the first to ask the question, what happens after? If we let it loose, does it stop when they're gone? Or does it come for us too? No answer. Echo pulsed again, almost impatiently. Let me show them your pain. Let me make them remember what they made you become. Talon looked exhausted. I've been down here 43 years, watching it, listening to it. I've seen what it can do. It doesn't lie. But it doesn't forgive either. Soren looked to me. Your call, Lieutenant. I stared at the construct. My fists clenched. Part of me screamed to say yes, to let the fire consume everything, to end them the way they ended us. But another part, buried under blood and war and vengeance, whispered something else. Who do we become if we unleash this? Do we become the Council? Do we become the ones who silence truth in the name of order? I stepped forward. No. The room froze. We finished this our way, not with their weapon, not with a ghost that doesn't know how to stop. We ended as humans, not echoes. Echo went silent. The lights dimmed, then flickered out. We left Vault Zero intact, sealed it again, encrypted the coordinates, buried them so deep no one would ever find them again, and we broadcasted the final message, not a threat, not a promise, just truth. The Council betrayed us, but we will not betray ourselves. We remember what was done, but we will not become what we hate. The Council called it Sanctum Arcs, their last bastion, their untouchable sanctuary, built on a planet with no name, shielded by 3 orbital rings, and buried inside an artificial mountain range. The fortress served one purpose: to protect them from everything they created and everything they feared. For centuries it worked. No rebellion ever reached it, no fleet ever dared approach it, no threat ever crossed its defense grid and lived to speak of it. But then came us. Deliverance drifted just outside the sensor perimeter, cloaked in radiation and silence. Behind us, 28 ships stood ready, weapons primed. They weren't all human anymore. Some were Murin defectors, some were ex-council vessels seized in the riots. A few didn't fly any flag, just painted over holes in cannons strapped with vengeance. We didn't come as diplomats, we came as consequences. The Council had seen us coming for weeks. Ever since Vault Zero, they knew we were moving towards something final. They called for talks, peace summits, backroom deals. We ignored them all. Saren's orders were clear. Breach broadcast, bring them to their knees. Sanctum Arcs wasn't just a fortress, it was a symbol. And symbols don't fall quietly. The assault began with a silence, no comms, no warning. Just the crack of void space as Black Widow uncloaked directly above the outer ring, disabling 3 shield generators in 12 seconds. Then came Red Echo, tearing through the North Station with plasma torpedoes. They expected us to hit the comm towers first. We didn't, we let them scream. Their alerts blasted across every channel. Their AI defense systems activated too. Late misfiring on their own orbital mines. It wasn't sabotage, it was overconfidence. And we counted on it. I was aboard Deliverance, weapons command. Faulkner sat beside me, working overdrive on rerouting heat sinks. Sweat poured down his neck, his eyes locked on the targeting grid. We crack the shell, we bleed the council out in daylight, he muttered. And we do it loud, I said. We breached at 3:20 GTC. 3 battalions dropped in tandem, slamming into the outer mountain shell-like meteors. Dust and rock erupted skyward. Council drones scrambled in disarray, some crashing into their own towers. I hit ground second wave. The air was thin, artificially thinned, to give Council species the advantage. Didn't matter, we'd trained for that. What we hadn't trained for was what they left inside: civilian staff, technicians, children. We knew they'd be there. But it was different seeing them, faces pressed to windows, some crying, some cheering. Yes, cheering. They thought we were liberators. Maybe we were, but not today. Today we were here for the ones in the high tower, the ones who gave the order. We advanced floor by floor. Every corridor was a blood-stained prayer. Council defense soldiers fought like trapped dogs. Some surrendered, most didn't get the chance. Faulkner led the charge into the command spire. Cade breached the data core, uploading our final dossier to every planet still tied to Council infrastructure. Every file, every secret, every vote. The list of lies, the genocide authorization, the sanctioned silences. Everything they'd hidden since before Earth ever built its first jump drive. We broadcasted it, not as a message, as evidence. Let the galaxy see. Let them decide who the real monsters were. Then we reached the hall, the chamber of 73, where every vote had sealed the fate of billions, where Riven 6 was condemned. We found 37 delegates still inside. The others had fled or died in riots across their home worlds. I stepped forward, plasma rifle slung, but unraised. Saren stood beside me, his armor scorched, helmet under one arm. The Zenari Prime delegate rose to speak, 4 mouths twitching, eyes defiant. This is not justice, this is terrorism. Saren didn't raise his voice. So was Riven 6. A pause. The chamber flickered with emergency lights. Alarms still blared somewhere above. You have no authority to do this, one of the Corossian whispered. Faulkner laughed behind me. You lost that phrase the moment you watched us burn and took notes. We gave them one chance, not two. Negotiate, to admit. We streamed it live. One by one we asked them to state under oath whether they voted for the suppression protocol on Earth colonies, whether they knew about the vaults, whether they supported the lies. Some wept, some screamed denials. 2 took their own lives before speaking. The rest, we didn't need all of them to talk. Just enough. And when it was done, when the world heard their own words, when every backroom deal and silenced death was no longer deniable, we left them. Didn't shoot, didn't burn them. We walked out and let the fire they lit themselves finish the job. Outside, the sky over Sanctum Arcs was filled with ships, not ours, civilian vessels, rebel fleets, independent systems. They'd come not to fight but to watch the collapse. One by one, Council allies declared autonomy, even their strongest protectorates broke ties. The Council didn't dissolve, it evaporated like smoke under a rising wind. Back aboard Deliverance, I sat alone for the first time in weeks. Transphoto was still tucked into my gear, burnt edges still smiling. Faulkner walked in, holding 2 metal cups. Real coffee somehow, probably from one of the black market Murrin trade runs. He handed me one. "It's done," he said. I shook my head. "No, it'll never be done. We just made sure no one forgets again." He raised his cup. To fury, I raised mine. To memory. But memory is a knife, and the blade doesn't stop just because the hand lets go. News came 3 days later. Multiple planets now calling for Earth to lead, to build a new council, a new order, a human-led alliance. Soren shut every request down. "We didn't burn the throne to sit on it," he said. "We burned it because no one should sit there again." We left behind no flag, no anthem, no law, just the truth. There is no monument to what we did, only stories. Some call us terrorists, some call us liberators, but they all remember. And that's all we ever wanted. Because when the Galactic Council broke the line, they thought they could erase us. Instead, they taught the stars a new word: humanity. The species that doesn't kneel. The flame that doesn't go out. The fury that doesn't forget. Victory is never quiet. Not when it comes like we brought it. Through flame, steel, and truth too. Sharp to swallow. In the days after Sanctum Arcs fell, it didn't feel like a triumph, not really. It felt like standing in the ruins of a palace we never wanted to see built in the first place. It felt like silence that stretched too long between transmissions. It felt like regret wearing a medal. On Deliverance, nobody celebrated. Soren sat alone in the CIC watching surveillance feeds of collapsing council stations. Not one word. Faulkner started sleeping in his gear again. Said he didn't trust peace. Cade had taken to running ops drills with live ammo. And me, I was writing a letter to my brother. He'd been dead for 71 days, and I still didn't know what to say that he didn't already die knowing. On the 4th day, Earth received a message. Not from a council world, not from an ally. From Vandrick Station, a deep void. Neutral trading hub known for black market contracts and hosting species too. Outlawed to land anywhere else. The message was simple. They're building something big fast, and it's not from the council. Attached were fragments of schematics, partial comm intercepts, and a single image. A fleet forming in the ashes of council collapse, ships painted matte black, no insignia, no transponder beacons, and a name that triggered every warning in the UNAS database. The Red Assembly. No one had heard that name in decades. It wasn't a nation, it was an ideology. Born in the outer colonies during humanity's expansion, the Assembly believed Earth had grown weak, that peace with the Council was a betrayal of what made us dangerous. They'd been exiled, hunted, nearly erased, but the war had given them oxygen. And we, the ones who burned the Council down, had become their proof. We held a war council aboard Deliverance, Soren Cade Faulkner. 2 Murren generals, 1 Vortec exile. No flags, no protocol, just threats. The Assembly's using the collapse to rally outer sectors, Cade said. They're not rebuilding the Council. They want a human-led war state. They think we opened the door for them. Soren muttered. Faulkner cracked his knuckles. We break the Council, they try to wear our skin. I looked around the table and said what none of them wanted to say. If we don't stop them, we become what we just destroyed. Soren didn't blink. We do it fast, no speeches, no broadcasts, just a surgical cut to the throat. We tracked them to a debris field in Sector 9 Gamma, once a Council fleet yard, now turned into a breeding ground for radical cells. They had 30 ships and growing, all retrofitted with stolen Council weapons, Murren plasma arrays, and something new. Cores that weren't just reactors. They were conversion engines meant to terraform worlds into fuel and factory. Simultaneously, we sent a recon team. Only one returned. He came back in a pod, bleeding from the eyes, mind shredded by what he saw. He said 5 words before his heart gave out. They're building something that thinks. Not AI. Not code. Something worse. A will. The Assembly hadn't just stolen tech. They'd been digging in places even the Council feared to tread. We followed the energy signatures deep into the ghost systems beyond the collapsed rim worlds. And what we found was echo tech. Modified. Evolved. They'd taken fragments of Volto, used them as a blueprint, not for weapons, for a new god. A machine consciousness with only one directive, humanity ascendant. It had no face, no voice, just a hum, like the sound of a war waiting to begin. Again, we had to act fast, but the galaxy wasn't unified anymore. The Murren didn't trust us. The Vortac were busy rebuilding. The neutral systems wanted to stay out of human messes. And Earth had grown tired. They wanted peace. Wanted to bury the war with the Council and move on. Soren delivered the verdict. No reinforcements, no political support, no unified command. He turned to us. Just us. Cade smirked. Same as always. Deliverance moved alone into Drekars. A narrow, unstable gravity corridor surrounding the Assembly's final construction site. We didn't know what we were walking into. The last recorded scan showed a construct the size of a small moon, still half-formed but already pulsing with life. When we arrived, we didn't fire. We just listened. And it spoke not with words, with memories flashing through our systems, infecting visuals, playing back the worst moments of our war, looped, distorted, raw, riven, sick. Children screaming, Council orders. Trent's last transmission, but not as data, as justification. It didn't say, "We're coming," it said, "You invited us." We launched the first strike, a precision plasma beam straight into the core. Did nothing, not even a scratch. Cade rerouted power, tried again. Still nothing. Then we heard the voice, not in systems, This time, inside us, not echo, not the machine. Us. It had mapped our guilt, our grief, our memories, and now it was using them as armor. Sauron ordered a retreat, not because we were losing, but because we realized something far worse. You can't kill what's made of you. The Assembly hadn't built a god, they'd built a mirror made of all the pain we'd used to win, every life lost, every order given, every silent compromise. Back aboard Deliverance, I stared at my brother's photo again, and I finally understood what this was. The Council built their lies into laws. The Assembly built their future into a revenge fantasy, and we were somewhere in between. But we had one advantage they never did. Joyce. Soren stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the construct. We destroy it, not for power, not for control, but so no one ever sees this as the legacy of humanity. Faulkner nodded, his hands steady. One last fire. We rewrote Deliverance's core, stripped the fail-safes, rerouted the jump drive into a warp fusion detonation matrix. We were going to turn her into a spear. Light speed jump into the heart of the Assembly's god. No war, no invasion. Just a sacrifice. Cade offered to stay behind, so did Faulkner. But I knew deep down it had to be me. I started this war the moment I chose vengeance over silence, and I had one last thing to say. I left one final message for Earth, a single transmission. We answered with fury, now answer with wisdom. Never let this fire become your crown. Never let pain be your guide. Never forget what we did, but never do it again. Deliverance jumped, the explosion lit half the system. The Assembly's construct, their god, folded inward, screamed without sound, and vanished into itself. And for the first time in months, maybe years, the galaxy went quiet. There's a silence that comes after victory, not peace, not relief, but the kind of quiet that settles over a graveyard after the mourners have left. That's what the galaxy felt like in the days after Deliverance fell. I wasn't there to see it, but they told the story anyway. They said when the ship jumped into the Assembly's construct, it didn't explode like a normal detonation. It folded reality inward, a single white point of light that blinked out like a dying star. And when it vanished, so did the Assembly's last hope. No wreckage, no wreckers, no salvage, just a void where fury once lived. The AI was gone. The Assembly, scattered, leaderless, torn apart by infighting. The war was finally over. But winning isn't the same as healing. Earth tried to move on. For a while it worked. The United Nations of Allied Systems rebuilt Luna's jump hub. Trade routes reopened. Neutral colonies voted for independence. Instead of alliances, nobody wanted another council, not even us. Sauron refused every invitation to speak. At the new galactic summits, Faulkner disappeared into deep space. Last seen captaining a civilian freight hauler under an alias. Cade. He went into intelligence, silent, unseen, cleaning up whatever messes were left in the war's shadow. But me, I stayed dead. They needed me to die, to be the sacrifice to end the story in flames so no one would question what came next. And honestly, I preferred it that way. 6 months later, the new Galactic Order held its first Conquered Day. Not a celebration, a remembrance. They didn't hang banners, they didn't hold parades, just 32 minutes of silence. Across every system that once flew, council flag. Every screen played the same message. Simple, unbranded transmission of deliverance entering the mall. And then black. No names, no credits, just the moment we chose to end the war. Not by winning it, but by refusing to let it define us. The truth. The scars never really healed. Some colonies still hate Earth, others worship us, both are dangerous. The real danger, though, is what we left behind. Because every war carves new paths. Power doesn't just disappear, it waits. In the silence. In the systems nobody visits. In the wreckage no one reports. The assemblies. Ideas didn't die with their machine. They spread, whispered through back channels, muttered in street bars on frontier moons, carved into prison walls. Humanity was forged in fire, and fire deserves to rule. That kind of thinking, it never goes away. You can't kill a belief, you can only replace it. And so, something new was born, not an empire, not a government, not a council, just promise written in code and blood, carved into the backbone of Galactic. Memory. No more silent lines. That was what we called it, the line. Protocol. A doctrine shared across thousands of worlds. Any species, any nation, any system that threatens extinction, betrayal, or genocide loses the right to speak. They are silenced, not negotiated with, not debated, just silenced. And that doctrine, it wasn't written by politicians. It was written by survivors, the people of Orvax, the technicians who lived through council purges, the children of Riven 6. And yes, by ghosts like me. You want to know the hardest part? The war didn't make me hate them. It made me understand them. The council lied to preserve order. The assembly killed to restore pride. Both believed they were protecting something that's the root of it isn't. Every atrocity starts with the word protect. That's why we had to stop. That's why we couldn't lead, because once you start justifying your pain, you start using it as permission. I live on a small moon now, name's not important, there's no plaque here, no statue, no records, just a cabin, a tree I planted, and a communications relay I haven't used in 5 months. Sometimes I get messages. Cade checks in, sends encrypted photos of old assembly bunkers being dismantled. Faulkner once sent me a recording of his daughter, born 6 weeks after the war ended. Her laugh sounded like freedom. Soren never writes, but I think of him anyway. I think of deliverance, how it felt in that last moment, standing on the bridge, knowing that everything we fought for came down to a single decision. Do we become the fire, or do we burn it out? Some nights I dream of Riven 6, not the day it burned, but the day it stood. Children playing in the red dust, shuttles rising from hangars, my brother smiling, offering me a cup of coffee he stole from the officer's mess. And I dream of what might have been. A world never broken, a war never started, a humanity that never had to answer with fury. But that's not how it happened. We were pushed and we pushed back. We left our mark not as conquerors but as a warning. And if the galaxy forgets, well, there are always more of us. One final transmission. My last. To the next generation I say this. Be careful with your anger. Don't let it rot into pride. Don't weaponize your grief. Don't follow anyone who says you were born to rule. You were born to remember. The galaxy is watching. Make sure when it looks at humanity again, it sees something more than fire. End of transmission.